Page 11. We'll start easy, okay? If we're solving an exponential equation like this one here, let's make it larger. Okay, these are what we call the easy exponential equations because you don't have to do anything with logs yet, okay? And essentially what you want to do is get the same base on both sides. That's the good way to start, okay? So for this first problem, what base do we have? 7. So we already have the same base, right? So then that means that whatever this exponent is has to equal whatever that exponent is in order for these two things to be equal. Does that make sense? So then 2x must equal 3. In other words, x is going to be 3 over 2. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. Let's do this tricky one over here. Okay? Now, this one, 3 and 5 are already as small as a base as we can get. Does that make sense? There's no other numbers we can replace it. 3 is already as low as possible, and so is 5. However, if we're going to try to get the same base, let's see. 243 is most likely going to be 3 to a power, and 3125 is going to be 5 to a power. Well, because the key is we're supposed to get the same base, so that means that this needs to become some version of 3/5. The question is it squared, cubed, to the 4th, to the 5th? And I mean, with the calculator, you could just pretty much guess and check what exponent would I use here so that 3 and 5 both become 243 and 3125? To the 5th? Okay? And so now that we have the same base, what does x have to be? X has to be equal to 5. Does that make sense? Okay? Let's try this seemingly hard one. Okay? How do I simplify this? E to the 4x times e to the x squared equals e to the 12. Okay. Now, when you're multiplying, what happens with the exponents? They add up. So we're going to get e to the 4x plus x squared equals e to the 12. Does that make sense? Yes. So once you get the same base, you do the same thing we did before. You just do 4x plus x squared equals 12. And since it's quadratic, we usually set these equal to what? To 0. So I'm going to write it as x squared plus 4x minus 12 equals 0. And these are not meant to be too difficult, so we should be able to factor this very easily. How does this factor?
-2.
Good. And so if those are both equal to 0, then what are our two answers here? 2 and -6. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yesterday, did you explain what the E equal, like what the E
No more than just that it's about 2.718. It's an irrational number like pi, 3.14, 159, and so on. E is another very important irrational number like pi. We just haven't seen too much of it yet. But we'll talk more specifically about what E is and what it's used for. But you just need to know it's about 2.718. Okay? All right. So sorry about that, you guys. I didn't realize our notes didn't have any like these. So now that you've seen these, hopefully you can finish that up.